Good morning, everybody, and thank you for calling in to our IPI virtual forum. Today we'll be presenting a partnering program profile. It's going to be presented by Bonnie Opie, who is the Arizona Department of Transportation Partnering Administrator, and it will be moderated by me, Donna Paz, for IPI. So if you do have any questions that you would like to ask the panel of presenters, please feel free to send them to us via chat or to jump in at any time during the conversation. We do have an interactive presentation today, and because we have such a diverse panel that I'll be introducing in just a moment, we have the opportunity to ask questions that approach partnering from multiple perspectives. So don't be shy with your questions, whether they're via chat or verbally. We look forward to this interactive dialogue. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and introduce the rest of our panel. We have Audra Merrick with the Arizona Department of Transportation. She is the Northcentral District Engineer, and prior to beginning her career at ADOT, Audra performed engineering work at Caltrans and for private sector engineering firms. She began her career with ADOT in 1998 and performed work in highway construction and design. In 2002, she left ADOT to work as a consultant performing engineering work under contract for ADOT. She returned to ADOT in 2007 to manage the district development and permits offices. She became the district engineer in 2013, and she's a graduate of Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering and a registered civil engineer in both Arizona and California. I'd also like to introduce Bonnie. She is the partnering administrator for the Arizona Department of Transportation, and she's responsible for the partnering program for the DOT. Bonnie began her career with ADOT in 2001. From 2004 to 2007, she was trained as a partnering facilitator and facilitated construction workshops across the state along with her duties at the district. She became a full-time partnering facilitator in 2007, and since then has facilitated construction workshops, public partnerships, internal partnerships, and process improvement teams. Bonnie has been involved in all aspects of partnering, including updating partnering training, revising the partnering manual, and implementing changes based on input from the construction industry. She became the acting partnering administrator in December 2014 and accepted the permanent position in May of 2015. Kole Dea is the I-10 segment manager for the ADOT South Mountain Freeway project. He graduated from the University of Arizona in 2006 and began with ADOT as an engineer in training, or EIT, in January 2007. Following graduation from the EIT program in 2008, Kole worked on multiple 202L Red Mountain Freeway projects, as well as smaller local agency projects for several municipalities in the Phoenix metro area. He became a resident engineer in January 2013 and worked on the completion of the 303L from Peoria to Mountain View and the development of the US 60 303L interchange project. Kole was also the resident engineer on the 202L Red Mountain Design Build project. That's a lot of expertise on the panel for ADOT. We also have some industry representatives. Jason Fann with Fann Contracting, Inc. possesses a broad range of experience and skill sets from horizontal construction to vertical. He has gone full circle in the industry, starting with his family business at Fann Contracting and then working his way up to project management positions with two large worldwide companies, Bechtel Corporation and Wynn Corporation. In 2007, Jason returned to Fann Contracting to rejoin the family business with his father and current president, Mike Fann. Jason's large company experience as project manager brought back a new perspective to Fann Contracting in project execution, project pre-planning, scheduling, cost control, contract management, job safety, quality management, and performance-based leadership. Jason helps oversee operations at Fann and serves many project clients such as ADOT, FHWA, the FAA, BIA, tribal communities, municipalities, public works, and private developers. And last but certainly not least, Steve Campbell with Pulice Construction. He is Senior Vice President and Arizona Region Manager of Pulice Construction, Inc. Based in Phoenix, he has overall management responsibility for the Arizona region, including safety, construction, and estimating. He began in the industry in 1989, working on a variety of marine projects along both coasts, the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. He joined Pulice in 1995 and has held positions including operations manager for both Pulice and McNeil Brothers, project manager, and engineer. Under Steve's leadership, the Arizona region has received numerous awards for partnering, including the Marvin M. Black and Arizona Transportation Partnering Excellence Awards. Steve is active in industry associations, including the Arizona chapter of the Associated General Contractors. Steve holds a BS in engineering from Texas A&M University and an MS in construction management from Arizona State University. So as you can see, we have a wonderful and very diverse panel, all going to be talking about Arizona Department of Transportation's partnering program and efforts and specific projects. So I will now hand the presentation over to Bonnie Opie, who will be presenting on behalf of ADOT.
Thank you, Donna. And thank you, Audra, Kole, Jason, and Steve for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your stories. And I'd also like to thank everyone else who's joined the forum. It's my pleasure to share information with you about our partnering program here at ADOT. So back in 1990, the ADOT director, Charles Cowan, learned about partnering from the Army Corps of Engineers, and he brought the concept to ADOT. This was a drastic change in culture, and during the early workshops, a lot of time was spent on education. Workshops typically lasted all day, sometimes 2 days, and all of the facilitators were either, they were consultants rather than ADOT employees. So that's kind of where ADOT started with partnering. Next slide. I wanted to share with you all a picture of the project team from the very first project that ADOT used partnering for. This is the team from the Rose Garden traffic interchange. You could see styles may have changed since '91, but we're still using the principles of partnering, and they have stood the test of time. Next slide. So an important part of the partnering process, as you all are aware, is evaluation and continuous improvement. Early on, ADOT developed a web-based system so that project teams could self-evaluate. Teams use reports from this system as a tool to keep on track and to identify issues that, if they weren't resolved at the field level, they could cause a lot of problems. So looking at the PEP, which is what we call our program, Partnering Evaluation Program, looking at the PEP reports is a valuable tool for management so that they can identify if a team needs some help in resolving issues. Next slide. So the two pictures that you see on the screen now are examples of some of the reports that you can generate from our PEP system. The report on the left shows the ratings for 5 different goals over a period of 5 months. So there are 5 goals indicated in 5 different groupings. And there's a baseline near the top that shows the area that we strive to be within or above. And you could see this team was all of their scores were within or above those 2 lines. So they were doing a pretty good job. The graph on the right shows the rating for the 5 goals over a 5-month period, but these are by stakeholder. So the one on the left is ADOT, the next one is the contractor, and then other and subcontractor. I found this one interesting because the contractor is rating the partnering process for the team slightly higher than ADOT. So that was a kind of an interesting one. Next slide, please, Donna.
Bonnie, I have a question about the PEP.
Sure.
I see you have your core goals, quality, communication, issue resolution, teamwork, schedule. So are these going to vary by project and input according to what your charter is, or do you have these as these goals that you measure across all projects?
We measure those 5 standard goals across all projects, but each team creates sub-goals to describe what those goals mean for them. So, for instance, a particular team might say that for them, schedule means that every week they're meeting the schedule that's been set out. other teams might say for them it just means finishing the project on time. There may be other pieces that each team looks at differently. So they all have the opportunity to indicate what we call sub-goals to clarify for each of those.
Great, thank you. I have advanced
You're welcome.
to the next slide.
Okay. So partnering has become the way that ADOT does business. The Office of Partnering supports ADOT's mission through partnerships that help ADOT provide a safe, efficient, cost-effective transportation system, which is part of the ADOT mission. We focus on customers, and that helps ADOT to achieve goals and build relationships to support the delivery of the state's programs, projects, and services. The Office of Partnering reports directly to the Deputy Director for Transportation, and administration of the partnering program is responsibility of the State Engineer's Office. Our office members provide leadership for partnering services. They provide facilitation, and they procure consultant facilitators when needed. We listen and make changes to the partnering program based on customer feedback. We promote the use of the PEP database and provide support for that database. We help the teams if they have challenges with the system. We measure the health of relationships and the process. We help strengthen relationships and link different stakeholders, such as the general public, local governments, state agencies, federal agencies, tribes, and then internally within ADOT, all of the different groups, designers, project supervisors, and then the construction industry with our subcontractors, prime contractors, suppliers, and the team members that work on the projects. One of the important things for us is obtaining feedback on the performance of our facilitators. And we have an evaluation at the end of every workshop where there's an opportunity for the people that attended and also leadership to provide feedback to me about how the workshop went and how the facilitators did. We also promote partnering education and training. Next slide. So not only is partnering the way ADOT does business, it's really become part of the culture within ADOT and with the contractors who do work for the department. Many contractors that work with ADOT have introduced the partnering principles to other owners and other state DOTs. So I'm going to ask now if the people that are on with me, Jason, Audra, Kole, and Steve, do you have anything that you would like to add from your perspective about the culture and how that's changed over the more than 25 years that ADOT's been using partnering? So I'd like to start with Audra. Do you have anything that you would like to add?
Bonnie pointed out, partnering is an ADOT construction culture, and it takes many years to develop this culture. It's really important that teams resolve issues as quickly as they can, keep those positive relationships, and really just to have fun with the projects and want to come to work every day and work with the team involved. We prefer construction issues are resolved at the lowest possible level, while it's understood and respected if they need to get resolved at higher levels for sure. Also here at ADOT, we also perform construction administration of our local government projects, the ones that use that federal funding. And so I know I personally have expanded the use of our partnering process to our local agencies to resolve not only construction issues, but various development issues as well. So the partnering process for us is actually moving beyond just our ADOT construction projects. With that said, Jason, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, for us on the contracting side, partnering is real critical, and we get a bird's eye view of different agencies and different customers, and where partnering is used and where it's not. And there is a noticeable difference, and there's value added to it, not just in the team, but also in the quality and safety of the project, because you're you're focusing on what's important. You're not focusing on, dealing with issues because those solutions are already behind you. For us, I'll echo Audra's comments. For us, it's having fun on the job. I mean, we enjoy what we do. We like to build things. We like to go to work. We're proud with what product we build. But it makes it complicated when you've got a team that is not getting along, or you've got issues on the job that don't get resolved quickly. And so, the proof is in the project at that point. And for us, we enjoy a good partnering project because we put praise on that project, and they generally have a good outcome on all ends. The other thing I'd like to add to that is, it really, you can talk about partnering all day, and that you believe in it and all that, but if you don't implement it and you don't have that in your mind and it's not a culture, then it doesn't work. I mean, and that needs to come from the top down, in our opinion, because if you don't have the support from above and the leadership and that positive attitude and the partnering mindset, then that doesn't trickle down to the field. And so for us, it's putting it into action too, and making sure everybody believes in it, and everybody's working together, and there is a lot of value in it. So that's my perspective. Steve, do you have anything to add?
Just agree with both of you and Audra's statements. I think one of the important things is, from our standpoint as management, if you see a job not going as well partnering, you get an outside perspective, and you can come in and kind of add that extra level of insight and get the team back on track. And there's always going to be conflict, and there's always going to be some issues that arise on these projects. They're challenging projects, they're stressful, but when everybody takes a step back and looks at what we're truly out here for, and we're working together as a team, then you get the partnering results we're always looking for. Kole, do you have anything?
I do. Bonnie asked about kind of how we've seen partnering change over the years. And one thing I've really noticed in my 10-year career here with ADOT is I've been fortunate enough to work with sometimes the same contractors on large projects. And that's really fun because these large contractors, we're really able to refine those sub-goals, and we're continuously improving and really making our progress and our partnering measurable. So every time we get the same guys in the room, we get much more detailed sub-goals and much more measurable sub-goals. So it's kind of fun to look back and see. On our first project together, we had very, very broad ideas. Now we're very specific on what we are measuring.
All right. Thank you all very much. So, Donna, we can go ahead and move on to the next slide.
Sure. Does anybody have any questions at this point before we move on? And you may be on mute. Okay, great. I heard a lot of things that we actually have heard echoed across many different projects, especially our programs, especially the need for leadership, commitment to partnering, and the refinement as people get better at it over the years. So thank you, panelists, for sharing that. Next slide.
So one of the big changes that's happened since partnering began at ADOT, as I mentioned early on, the facilitators were all consultants. And as partnering evolved within ADOT, it was determined that we would have a staff of trained facilitators that, even though they're ADOT employees, they are still able to act as that neutral third party and be able to facilitate the workshops. So at this point, we have 4 full-time ADOT employees who are facilitators, and they facilitate all of the construction workshops for ADOT, with the exception of, maybe half a dozen throughout the year that, for different reasons, we will hire a consultant. This year, actually last year in 2006, those 4 facilitators did 151 construction workshops. And along with that, we also support several public partnerships. and I'll talk about those in just a minute. But they also facilitated 43 partnering meetings for non-construction. Go ahead and change the slide, Donna. Another thing that we've implemented over the last couple years, we've realized that there are many project teams that have worked together repeatedly. They have an excellent relationship. And we were hearing, we just finished a pavement preservation job with company XYZ last month, and now we're starting another one. So we developed a modified construction workshop. It's called Partnering in the Precon. And this is typically used for pavement preservation, sign panel replacement, projects that are either mostly on the pavement or don't have impact outside of the roadway prism where there's already been disturbance. And so there's minimal environmental impact, minimal impact to the traveling public. They're short duration. They're in areas with minimal traffic. We have a matrix that you can see on the slide that we use, and we score the project based on the specific criteria. And if the score fits, then we talk to the resident engineer and to the contractor's project manager to make sure that they agree. We've had all the resident engineers in ADOT that qualified. They had to have been on a certain number of projects over their career and had enough experience. But we've trained them to incorporate 4 elements of partnering into their pre-construction conference, and the resident engineer or project manager facilitates that. So during that pre-construction conference, they're figuring out who their partnering champions are. They're creating their issue escalation ladder. They're creating their sub-goals so that they can use the PEP system. And then they're working through their issues and creating action plans. We've had very good results with this over the last year and a half or 2 years. And Jason actually, his company had a partnering in the Precon just last week. And the Flagstaff, and I shouldn't say Flagstaff, Northcentral District, we recently changed the names of our districts, so I struggle with that once in a while. The Northcentral District, which is Audra's district, one of her resident engineers facilitated that partnering in the Precon and got the report out in less than a day, and the project's moving along. And Jason, with what you had going on last week, I don't know if you had a chance to talk to your team about it.
I did. It was certainly unique and new to ADOT and the contracting industry. We did see some value in it. Let me give you a quick backstory on the project we've been on and this new project where we did the partnering at the Precon. We've been on a job, a major rehabilitation project on Interstate 17 since last year. That project is still ongoing. It's in the final stages of paving. And there was a new project, more of an emergency job that came out to bid under a competitive process about 20 miles north of the location that we're working at. We were awarded that project recently. It had an accelerated award date so that we could get rolling quickly. And so it turned out to be essentially the same team with ADOT and the same team on the construction end working on a similar project. So it kind of had all those components to it that made it a good candidate for this new partnering in the Precon. Where ADOT's partnering and Precon meetings for a normal project take anywhere from 4, 5, or 6 hours. It starts in the morning and ends in the early afternoon with lunch in between. That is, everybody's got busy schedules. So this modified and abbreviated version for jobs that are good candidates actually does work because it doesn't take as long You focus strictly on the issues of the project, which in our opinion are, you want the escalation process, your dispute resolution process. You want to talk about your goals. Those had already been hashed out under the previous project with the previous team. But what we were able to really focus on are the concerns that we had up front. It was an accelerated award, and it is an accelerated project. We're actually paving it right now. So, there wasn't a lot of time to, think about solutions and things like that. You addressed all those at that meeting. So for us, we liked it. I would suggest that, you do. I like, Bonnie, the idea of, leaving it up to the team's discretion on whether or not it's a good candidate, because if there's an absorbent amount of concerns in the beginning, or, maybe the team is unfamiliar with each other, or other situations where maybe the full-blown partnering in Precon is a better approach, that I do think in this case it was a good experience.
And Audra, since this was in your district, is there something you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think Jason discussed that specific project quite well. The feedback we received from our employees is they really appreciated being able to conduct some of these meetings themselves. Again, as Bonnie pointed out, they are seasoned employees that have been through the partnering process. Here at ADOT, we also implemented that streamlined partnering approach in the interest of really resource efficiency. We have a very large state and, not a bunch of permanent employees who are ADOT facilitators. And our construction resident engineers now conduct these streamlined meetings. And that allows our ADOT partnering facilitators to free up more of their time to work on what we would consider higher risk projects. And our construction engineers have been really excited to take on this task, and they've really embraced it. Like Bonnie pointed out, we had our engineer issue the report in really less than 24 hours. Steve, do you have anything to add?
No, we actually have not done the partnering in a Precon yet, so I can't really add any insight to this.
Kole, have you been involved in a partnering in the Precon?
I have, and I guess I don't have a heck of a whole lot to add. I think that was a very good description up front of some of the pros of that process.
Good. Thank you very much. All right, Donna, next slide.
Okay.
So I briefly mentioned public partnerships, and so I'd like to talk just a little bit about that. We have several public partnerships that were formed some many years ago, and they've been proven to be very valuable. I'm sure the other states have the same thing, but for Arizona, we have Bureau of Land Management, Forest Service, and tribal lands that our highways cross. And those lands, we don't purchase the right-of-way for our highways. It's an easement. So there's always coordination between the land management agency or the tribal owner of that land, not only for the development and construction, but then also for maintenance and pavement preservation and things like that as we operate the highway. So we currently have partnerships with the agencies listed on the screen. We did originally have a separate partnership with the Bureau of Land Management and a separate one with the Forest Service. Back in 2008, we realized that it could be beneficial to join those two partnerships. And so since 2008, BLM, Forest Service, Federal Highways, and ADOT coordinate and work through processes and develop ways to do business together jointly, and that's been very beneficial. We have had, over the last 10 years, many projects that were on the Tonto National Forest, large new alignments right through the middle of the forest. So we've had a separate partnership with that forest. We actually implemented a liaison position that is a Forest Service employee who is paid with ADOT funds, and that employee does the plans review. They attend all of the development meetings. They work closely with the project team during construction and help to bridge that gap between the forest and ADOT and the contractor to make sure that the forest interests are taken care of, but still in a way that works for the project and the project team. It's been very beneficial. We had a position very similar to that with the BLM over in the Kingman area when there were a lot of big projects going on over there. We also have a partnership with the Arizona State Land Department, and then with four of the tribes in Arizona we have formal partnerships with, and they have all proved to be very beneficial. Next slide, Donna. So the partnership that we have with the Navajo Nation and the Navajo DOT proved to be extremely valuable in 2013. We take a look at the top photo. That is US 89 in northern Arizona. It experienced a landslide during the middle of the night, and the highway was closed. We had to do a lot of investigating, figure out what caused the landslide, and then develop a plan for how to repair it. And this was going to cause extreme hardship for many people, including many members of the Navajo Nation. There were school buses that used this route to get children to school in Flagstaff, and it created a huge detour for them. Audra was the district engineer for this area when the landslide occurred. So I'd like to ask Audra to give some information about the project, how we ended up creating a bypass, and how the relationship that we had built with the Navajo Nation became so valuable to expedite the project. So Audra, I'll turn that over to you.
Yes, thanks, Bonnie. So through the existing Navajo ADOT public partnership that Bonnie described, we had there was key district staff relationships that were established prior to the landslide event of January 2013 between ADOT district staff, the Navajo Nation, the Navajo Department of Transportation, and then BIA, the Bureau of Indian Affairs. The landslide section of US 89 is actually located on the Navajo Nation. And so not only did these partnering relationships prove to be most valuable, or proved to be most valuable in the successful response to the landslide event itself, but also our understanding and respect for the Navajo culture as well. It was through this public partnership where we've developed those relationships and the understanding of their culture and able to deal with this specific situation of January 2013. In one of our public partnering meetings prior to the landslide, we developed an agency contact list of key individual names and contact information. Immediately after the landslide event, I actually emailed that list to our management in Phoenix, so they had that information readily at their fingertips quickly, and they assisted with any necessary coordination at various levels between the agencies. There was a lot of agencies involved because you had the Navajo Nation, the Navajo DOT, the BIA was involved, the City of Page was involved. There was numerous chapter houses as well. And then within the few days of the landslide event, we actually brought all the key stakeholders in to our district conference room here in Flagstaff to discuss the strategies moving forward, the roles, the responsibilities of each agency, and set those expectations. Again, the key relationships were established from the partnership itself, and so team members had a prior trust with each other, which is really important in these types of incident management situations. The one thing that the partnership was able to do is the agencies, being ADOT, Navajo Department of Transportation, and BIA, they went out together to the public, and they went out together as a unified team, delivering the same message points to residents of the chapter houses. Many times the Navajo language is spoken at these chapter house meetings, and so respecting the Navajo culture, our partners from Navajo DOT and BIA translated for us from English language to the Navajo language and vice versa at these public meetings. The Navajo culture also required numerous blessing ceremonies of the landslide area itself that we understood, we respected, and we happily accommodated through the incident response. And again, that partnership helped us with that because we had those relationships established and we had that trust in place. Through this event, we spent many hours with each other. We became family, again, further trusting each other, and we're able to sustain those positive relationships. When the landslide was open, the first vehicle through the site itself was the school bus. That's why that picture is there on the slide. And we did this because the children on the Navajo Nation were so greatly impacted by the landslide event. The closure of the roadway actually added hours to their daily commute, and we were receiving reports that some of these school children were actually getting home at 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the evening, if you can imagine that. So we were able to get a detour in place, like Bonnie pointed out. We called it 89T, and we were able to have that constructed and open within 3 months of the landslide event, which was imperative to those school children. And the partnership we had in place, we were able to utilize some of the information that the Navajo DOT and BIA already had on that route in the interest of expanding that route further in the future. We used a lot of their environmental documentation and a lot of their plan information, and we really worked together for the better interest of the public.
So this 89T was an addition to the original scope.
Yes, yeah. So the landslide itself was US 89, and what we did initially was just secure the area in the interest of safety. And after we secured the area, while we were performing the geotechnical analysis on the US 89 landslide flight, our site, in conjunction with that, we worked on the US 89T detour. And we're trying to get that detour route in place because we knew the landslide itself would take a little bit longer to repair. Mm-hmm. And we used our partnership to facilitate that project.
All right. Thank you very much, Audra. And Donna, if you'll turn to the next slide, there's just a couple photos there where we gave an award to a lady from BLM who had been involved with the partnership for many years and was retiring. And the one on the bottom right is for the Navajo partnership, and they met out at a picnic area out in the forest on the Navajo. So it's just a really interesting way to get together and do what's right for the partnership.
Does anybody have any questions that would like to jump in now?
Yeah, this is Ken Solak with Caltrans. I've got a question. How long did it take you to develop these varying different partnerships with these other entities? Was it, just a year or two, or has it been 10 years?
The partnership with the BLM has been in place for, I'm going to say, over 20 years, and the Forest Service about the same length of time. I wasn't involved early on when those started. Steve, I don't know, have you had any projects that involved the BLM over in the Kingman area where you might have had knowledge of that partnership?
Yeah, but I don't have any time frame how far that goes back.
Okay. So from what I have read in the history documents about the partnership began because there were conflicts, which I think is very typical. And it took 2 or 3 years with a consultant facilitator to really bring the group together and have them be able to develop agreements. So we actually have a guideline book for that BLM and Forest Service partnership, and that was developed over probably 10 years. And during that time, we were really resolving a lot of issues and building our relationship. Then the partnership with the state land department and with the tribes, I would say, was very similar. It takes time, and it's typically when there's an issue that comes to a head over a project that leadership will say, we need to find a better way to do this. And that's when we've started our partnerships. Does that answer your question, Ken?
Yeah, we've had some attempts to work with other state agencies and regulatory agencies in a strategic level partnering, and there was a bumpy road to begin with, and then it just kind of fell apart. And it was just interesting to hear that you guys have a number of these partnering relationships with regulatory or third-party entities that seems to be successful. And so maybe I'd like to work with you guys a little bit more to see, how that strategy worked. We have, I'm sure, hundreds of these entities in California that we would really benefit by developing a strategic level partnering relationship. And with FHWA, we have involved them, and they're regularly attending our partnering steering committee meetings for the last 10 years. So we have developed that relationship, but there are very few other relationships with other entities, regulatory agencies, local agencies that we've built at a sustainable level.
One of the things that I think is key, leadership at both agencies have to say, we want this to happen. And then the second thing, you need to have a dedicated facilitator to keep pushing and keep the group on track and moving forward. Everyone is so busy, and their everyday work is always going to take priority for them. And if they don't have someone that is reminding, constantly dinging them, saying, okay, here was the action plan. Have you made any progress? Is there something that I or another member of the team can help with to get this moving forward? That constant monitoring is what makes those partnerships be able to be sustained and move forward.
Yeah.
I truly believe if we didn't have facilitators dedicated to keeping those partnerships moving forward, they would have not gone to the point they are.
And these are your in-house facilitators?
Originally, they were consultants. And in 2008, when I was hired as a full-time ADOT facilitator, that was part of my duties, was the partnerships, the public partnerships, except for the tribal ones. Those still had a consultant. And I spent a good share of my time working with those teams and keeping things moving forward. Now that I'm the partnering administrator, I've transitioned that to the 4 facilitators that are on my team. And they're always monitoring the action plans, calling, scheduling meetings, and just following up.
Yeah, maintaining those relationships is critical to the success of that. And I'm going to try to see what I can do here in California to really develop relationships with some of the higher level ones and try to maintain that.
And anytime you want to talk, Ken, just give me a call.
I will. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions about the public partnerships? So, Donna, what slide are we on?
We are moving on to the slide on partnering history and changes over the years, including informal partnerships with local public agencies.
Okay, that's what I thought. So I'm sure this is the same in other states. ADOT gets federal funding that is for local public agencies, and we administer those projects for the local public agency. And so it's important that we have a good relationship with those local public agencies. And we also develop relationships with the municipalities where our highways cross through, and with law enforcement, and with DOTs from the neighboring states. Our highways cross into California, New Mexico, and Utah. So these are important relationships, and they're not formal partnerships, but we do work hard at maintaining those. So one of the important projects that recently is the I-15 in the northwest corner of Arizona. It's a 30-mile stretch of highway in Audra's district in Arizona, but you can't get there from here. To get to that stretch of highway from Arizona, you have to first go to Nevada or Utah. And there are several bridges in that area that have been replaced over the past couple of years. Pulice Construction, with Steve, who's on the phone with us, recently completed the Virgin River Bridge number 6. That project received a Marvin M. Black Award for partnering on March 8th, and we were just notified that it's also receiving an IPI award. And this is in Audra's district, and it was Steve's company that built the project. So I'd like the two of you to talk a little bit about the relationships that the project team built with the other DOTs and with law enforcement during the projects up on that stretch. Steve, would you like to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. Yeah, it was as you said, it's a very unique project. It's in an area of Arizona that's not accessible from Arizona. So pretty much everybody that was up there was traveling up there to work on the project. And it's unique in the sense, you have an ADOT DPS station that I believe either has 4 or 5 DPS officers. You have an ADOT maintenance district up there. And immediately from really the inception of the job, the pre-construction phase, everybody began working together on this project, and there was a tremendous amount of other agencies involved. There was Nevada DOT, Utah DOT, and the other agencies that were involved, including DPS, Bureau of Land Management, Fish and Game. It really took everybody working together because of the numerous constraints on this job, including a tremendous amount of environmental constraints, to work through and get the process to actually get to construction. To get to that point was a huge obstacle, and everybody had to work together. And then once the job started, those relationships were already developed, and the team really formed as a team long before that, and they had a good time on the job. It was the true, what you want to see in a partnering project. They started a softball league together. They had regular cookouts together. They helped out the DPS whenever they could, because if there was an accident on this stretch of I-15, it was a very congested corridor because of the construction. So we had to, in some cases, use some of our equipment and forces to move accidents off the side of the road or whatever else may happen. But I'd look at that job as one of the projects that is a model for partnering, that everybody went up there with the right mindset and they carried it through the entire job. There was difficult times during the job. There was issues during the job. There was a number of challenges, but it was always a team effort to get to the outcome. Audra, do you have something?
Steve actually outlined that really well, and Bonnie with her comments as well. When employees work in these very remote areas in Arizona, like was mentioned, their families generally don't move with them. And so after work, they tend to gather with other employees because there's no family members normally around. And because they have more time for themselves, so to speak, you'll see them start to take part in outside work activities like the softball teams, the barbecues. You see some of our teams get involved in parades, and we even had an ice bucket challenge on one of our projects. And even though these team building activities are by no means required in the partnering process, so to say, they are a natural outcome of that partnering culture developed on our construction projects, and these relationships created outside of work helps them trust each other in resolving the construction problems efficiently when they're encountered out in the field. This area too, you also see within ADOT a lot of cross-training of positions between our construction staff and our maintenance staff. We're set up where we have a construction leg and a maintenance leg. And in our district, especially up in that area, if construction is in the area, you see them help maintenance with accidents and maintenance duties, and you see our maintenance staff help construction as well. And we naturally do that up here, and partly because we're just a remote district, and partly because it's the partnering process that we've expanded it beyond just the construction projects alone.
Great, thank you very much. So Donna, if you could move to the next slide. This is just a photo of the Virgin River Bridge number 6. Quite an impressive area there. Wouldn't you like to be in that RV driving across that bridge?
I would.
Yeah. And then the next slide are some pictures of the team for that Virgin River Bridge number 6. It's the softball team and then the float that they put into the Christmas parade. Those guys had a lot of fun. Even though they worked very hard, it was a complex project and they were away from home, they figured out ways to have fun. And then Donna, if you could go ahead and move to the next slide. These are just a couple of other photos of kickoff, groundbreaking ceremony, including tribal members, and then the one on the right includes Forest Service members. That's the Clint's Well project team with Fann Construction, Fann Contracting, excuse me, Jason. And the one on the left is also Fann Contracting, and that was for the Fane Road project. So when they have different project meetings, they bring in all the stakeholders that are involved that possibly can. So we have local government and Forest Service in both of those photos. All right, so moving on to the next slide. So ADOT staff also meets regularly with Federal Highway Administration staff. We meet with the members of the Associated General Contractors and the American Council of Engineering Companies. The partnering office does regular surveys of industry and people who have attended a construction partnering workshop over the past few years. From every sign-in sheet from a workshop, we've created a database that we use when we send out our survey. And in 2012, as a result of that survey, we created some focus groups with industry and ADOT, and we had a leadership team with some industry representatives, and that team came up with some recommended changes for improvements to the partnering program. Next slide, Donna. One of those recommendations was for a conference call to be held prior to the workshop. The reason for the conference call is that many of the construction industry people felt like the decisions about the partnering workshop were being made by ADOT without input from the contractor. So by implementing the phone call, we have the ADOT resident engineer and the contractor project manager on the phone, along with one of the facilitators from my office and my project manager. And they talk through a checklist to determine who needs to be invited to the workshop, when, where, and how long it will be, what the format will be, how much education needs to be given, if it's a new contractor or a team that hasn't worked together before, if there's team building that needs to happen. And then we also ask if there are major issues that are going to need to be resolved during the workshop so that we know how much time to allow. They decide where the workshop will be held and if food will be served and how the logistics are all going to work for that. So by doing that, the two people that are going to be working closest together, the resident engineer and the project manager, are both on the call and they're making the decisions jointly about what that workshop's going to look like. and the partnering office staff are able to provide their experience to help guide them, to make sure that they get the best workshop for that project and that team. The other thing that happens that I don't know happens across the board in other areas, but for ADOT, the expenses for the workshop are split evenly between ADOT and the contractor. So that could be if we hire a consultant facilitator, if we have to pay for a venue, and if there's food served. ADOT procures that, and then there's a change order created for the contractor to pay half. And then moving on to the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about what the future holds for partnering at ADOT. You know, we are trying to implement more closeout workshops for specific projects so that teams can celebrate success and share lessons learned that could help prevent issues on future projects. We don't want to do closeouts for every project, but we always let the project team know at the initial partnering workshop if this project is unusual or if there are unusual things that happen throughout the project, if it's a long duration, alternative delivery, you might want to consider having a closeout workshop. And so then they will contact us and we will help them figure out exactly what they want to learn and format a workshop to help them accomplish that. The other thing that's happening with ADOT, alternative delivery projects are becoming more common. We're doing more design build and construction manager at risk, or CMAR, and also public-private partnerships. Kole is working on the South Mountain Freeway P3 contract. This is a $916 million contract, and the agreement is for the design and construction and also for 30-year maintenance of a 22-mile new alignment. This project is going to have multiple workshops. There's an executive team that's meeting quarterly. We've already held workshops for design, for the communications team, and recently for the construction team. And it's a very unusual project, and we're formulating the different workshops to meet the needs of the team. And I'd like to ask Kole to speak a little bit about how that team is using partnering and maybe in some ways that haven't been usual for the projects that he's on, although Kole has been on quite a few different design build projects. So Kole, I'll turn it over to you for a minute or two here.
Cool. Thank you, Bonnie. As you mentioned, it is a 3P project, or a public-private partnership. It's Arizona's first 3P project. With regards to partnering, it's similar to a design build with regards to partnering workshops. We've had multiple partnering workshops for multiple disciplines. We held our design partnering workshop back in August of 2016. And we just recently held our construction partnering workshop last month. So you can see there's a pretty good time gap between those two meetings. And with those workshops came two completely different or unique team charters. The partnering principles are the same for both of these charters, and the team goals were very similar, but again, they weren't identical because design folks have different goals than what construction folks have. And then once you got down into our sub-goals, they're very unique, very independent based on the needs and the wants of the design team, both ADOT and the Connect 202 team, as well as in the construction field. Very unique differences between Connect 202, ADOT, as well as other agencies. If you take a look at the slideshow, you're seeing pictures right there of one of our team building activities during our construction partnering workshop. The focus on those slides was communication. So what the activity was, is we had to build a little Lego set, build a little Lego bulldozer that we had to fill. And one person had the instructions, that could see the instructions, and had to verbally communicate with the rest of the table in order to construct this bulldozer. And it really made you think and really made you concentrate on your words, make sure you're being very specific, and make sure you are verbalizing the specific details you are seeing in your head. And it was a good reminder to all of our team that we may be thinking one thing, but we don't always verbalize it. With regards, to big picture stuff, we partner with the city of Phoenix. We've partnered with DPS, dry utilities, wet utilities, HOAs, other private entities whose right-of-way we are acquiring. So it's been a very, very in-depth partnering process on many different fronts on the South Mountain project. In terms of our C202 team, we hold potlucks pretty much monthly. We've also had a picnic and team lunches. And those potlucks really do just help people talk about things in an unofficial climate, basically. It's very much relaxed. Some of the best issues are actually brought up when you're just sitting on a tailgate having a picnic with a member from the other side of your team. So we've very much invested in the partnering program for the 3P project, and Connect 202 is also invested in it and made a commitment to follow it. We do not have any follow-up partnering sessions scheduled at this time, but I see that coming in the next few months. We'll have a follow-up design partnering scheduled, as well as followed-up construction partnering workshops.
Thank you,
Any
Kole.
questions about South Mountain Project with regards to partnering?
Okay, I appreciate your contribution, Kole, and I do want to apologize. We're running over time. We're wrapping it up soon, and so if you do have any questions, feel free to send them via chat, and I'll make sure to call them out to the rest of the panel. Thanks again, Kole.
Absolutely.
We just have 2 slides left, so we're wrapping up. So with all the technology available and almost everyone using a mobile device, we wanted to update our partnering evaluation program so that someone could just use a mobile device to enter their PEP. In the past, many times evaluations were completed on PEP paper, and then an ADOT staff member entered the scores and comments into the system. That was very time-consuming with many agencies and companies trying to do more with less staff. It's important that we use technology to the best ability that we can. So we're working now on changes to the system. Hopefully we'll get it implemented in this next year, and someone will be able to send a link to the team members. They click on that link, complete their application, hit submit, and it goes into the system. So that's what we're working on. Also, I've been hearing from other agencies in Arizona that they're implementing formal partnering processes. So that's going to help the contractors that already are used to using partnering with ADOT, and now they will also see the benefits of partnering when they're working with other agencies within the state. Next slide, Donna.
Can I hold on? I have a question about that one.
Absolutely.
This is Ken with Caltrans. I was aware that maybe a few years ago you guys were looking at technology and your monthly surveys. Did you guys ever do anything with that by completing or developing a monthly survey for using statewide for consistency?
Our partnering evaluation program has the 5 standard goals, and then each team inserts their own sub-goals, but that's a system that's used on every ADOT project.
Okay, so what you were on this slide, the evaluation, I was getting a sense that that was actually evaluating the process, not the specific project goals, not the monthly survey, but this is that survey that you're referring to.
Correct.
Okay. Now, is that an off-the-shelf program, or did you guys develop that?
ADOT developed that. So call me and let's talk about it.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, you bet,
Great
Ken.
question, Ken.
And so a couple other things that we are going to be working on over the next year. Our training program hasn't been updated for a few years, so I want to work on that. We're also starting to develop a standard process for partnering in the design phase. And we're also working on some ongoing training for resident engineers. A resident engineers academy is being implemented within ADOT, and we're going to try and have a couple pieces of that academy be about partnering. So bottom line, our partnering program is continuously being improved. We're always looking for ways to make it better, and hopefully we are making a difference. I know that many people feel that partnering is the best way we can possibly do business, and it is the way that ADOT does business. Our role is to continuously monitor and look for ways to improve. So I hope this information's been helpful. Donna, I know we're over time, so I'll turn it back to you, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Bonnie. Does anybody have any questions for Bonnie or the other panelists before we wrap up? I really appreciate your presentation. It has been very helpful. I think we saw a lot of good best practices and innovations to partnering that I think we can make use of moving forward. Should anybody have any questions for Bonnie or anybody else on the panel, you can forward them to me, and I make sure to get them to all of the panelists. And Bonnie's information is also on the screen, so you can email her directly as well. I would like to thank all of our panelists and Bonnie for your presentation and your time today. It's great to hear multiple perspectives on a long-running partnering program and how we can make partnering better moving forward. So thank you very much, and thank you all for calling in. We will have this on our YouTube channel if you would like to share it with any of your staff or colleagues who would benefit from learning more. And as you know, IPI has many resources on our website. Please feel free to access it at partneringinstitute.org. And we hope to see you for our next virtual forum, where we'll be learning about a different partnering program. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you all.